Hello, I'm Razia Iqbal. Welcome to NewsHour from the BBC World Service. It comes to you live from our studios in central London. We begin today with Africa's most populous country, more than 200 million people, Nigeria, which is also the continent's biggest economy. The success or failure of this oil-rich giant of a country matters to Africa. And today, it's in the middle of the most competitive presidential election since military rule ended. It is an election that's being fought in the context of economic stagnation and considerable insecurity. Since 1999, the country has been dominated by two parties, the ruling APC, the All Progressives Congress Party, whose candidate is a man called Bola Tinubu. He's 70 years old, and the PDR, the People's Democratic Party. Their candidate is 76-year-old Atiku Abubakar, a former vice president and a man who's making his sixth run for president. In amidst these septuagenarians is a third candidate, a mere stripling at 61, Peter Obi, standing as the Labour Party's candidate. And he has been campaigning strongly amongst young people. More on that shortly. He's regarded by some as the potential disruptor of this two-horse race. Polling stations are now closed and votes are being counted after reports of long queues at most polling stations all day today. In a moment, we'll hear from two of our correspondents who've been out and about. First, though, a small sense of voters' experiences during the course of the day in the cities of Awka, Lagos and Kano.
I voted as early as 9 o'clock, and I'm the first person to vote in my own polling unit. And the exercise is running smoothly.
The exercise has taken position in a very good manner. There is no harassment or something like that from security or other political parties members.
We are here to decide our next president for the next 4 years. So whatever we decide right now will affect us positively or negatively in the next 4 years. So I just hope we all do the right thing and vote wisely.
I walked a long distance to get to this place, and I can see the turnout is actually great. I expect the elections to be fair and fair.
Well, a little earlier, our West Africa correspondent, Mayeni Jones, told me about the surprising rise of that third candidate, Peter Obi.
I think it's important to explain how he's got to where he is. You know, this is definitely the work of a lot of young, politically savvy, social media savvy activists who've taken to social media and really taken to Mr. Obi, who they say is somebody with integrity, somebody who could help shake up Nigerian politics. They've been campaigning ardently from him, harnessing some of the lessons that they learned in the 2020 EndSARS anti-police brutality protests that then moved into demands for better governance for young people. They've learned the lessons, the organization lessons that they learned there, and they've applied it to this election, and I think that that's what led to the record levels of youth turnout. 10 million people added to the electoral register, 40% of whom are young people. That is the result of a lot of this young activism.
Just briefly, I mean, the other two candidates, traditional parties, well-greased party machines. Is it possible that Peter Obi really will have the kind of machinery in place that will allow him to function effectively in this election?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair to ask, because that's what a lot of analysts are saying, that they don't think he's got the infrastructure of the other two. And the only way he can win is by forming an alliance with one of them. So the next couple of days should be very interesting as results trickle in and we see how much support he's actually been able to get at the polls.
Mayeni Jones. Well, another of our reporters, Azizat Ola Oluwa, has been travelling around Lagos State, observing the voting as some polling stations close and others remain open. Many voters found the process efficient and smooth, but that wasn't the case everywhere.
So I went to a particular polling unit where a voter told me that the process was smooth. She was impressed with the way things were going, but it was very slow. But in other areas where we went to, there were massive voter turnout, but unfortunately the polling officers were not there to attend to people, and the mood was anger, frustration and confusion. We went to another place around Lagos called Surulere, where voting was going on smoothly. The process, was commended, but unfortunately suspected gunmen started shooting, so people had to run away. The polling officers had to run for safety as well. So because of that, majority of the voters that were supposed to cast their vote were disenfranchised.
So in terms of how much interest there has been in people voting, you seem to be suggesting that there is real engagement.
Absolutely, but I must clarify that when votes counting started in some polling units, the number of valid votes were very low. And in fact, the voter turnout in some polling units were quite low as well. For example, the polling unit of the presidential candidate of the ruling party recorded just about 43 total votes. And the number of expected votes should have been up to over 300. So at the end of the day, you would say that in that area and in some other areas that we went to, voter turnout was quite low. But there were a particular section of Lagos, known to be occupied by a particular ethnic group, and they turned out very early. They went to their polling units very early in the morning, but polling officers did not show up. So in a way, you can say that there has been a massive turnout of voters in a section of the state in Lagos, while in some other parts of the state, it wasn't so impressive.
That was one of our reporters, Azizat Ola Aluwa, who's been travelling around Lagos State. Now, according to the Independent National Electoral Commission, more than 93 million Nigerians are eligible to vote. Nearly 40 million of those are young people between the ages of 18 and 34. The power of those young people's political engagement was evident last year when mass protests broke out on the streets and online against police brutality. Mayeni Jones was talking about Peter Obi championing that End SARS protest movement. So just how important are those young people to this election and what are their concerns? We can speak now to Ebenezar Wikina, who is the founder of Policy Shapers. It's a civic policy organisation that works with young people, and he joins us from Port Harcourt in Rivers State in Nigeria. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Tell us first about how smooth it was for you to vote today. Was it easy? Because it's clearly been a fairly mixed picture.
Yeah, sadly here in River State, Port Harcourt, it really wasn't easy for me, and it wasn't easy for so many people across the state. In fact, at some polling units, it's about 10 p.m. now. Some people are still queuing up, just trying to get their votes in.
And are the polling stations still open in order for them to be able to do that?
In a couple of places, yes, the polling stations are still open. So they're using torch lights. They're trying to use the lights from their phone. In my polling unit, we had over 1,000 people. Only 100 people were able to vote. So it was really terrible. You know, the technology, the new INEC BVAS system didn't work. They had network challenges. The INEC staff had trouble trying to navigate the system and everything. So it was really terrible.
It's your view that some people have actually been denied from voting for all kinds of reasons.
Yes. There are many people who have been disenfranchised. If you go online, the conversation now is just about asking for reruns in so many states because a lot of people feel like they were not able to, put in their votes and, exercise their civic duty, which a lot of young people were looking forward to. I mean, in our policy shapers community, we had a lot of young people who were looking forward to doing this. We had so much sensitization, telling people to come out to vote, and it's just really terrible that, on the day of the election, violence in most parts of Lagos and in river states, the INEC system didn't work. And even when the system worked and results were meant to be uploaded live to a central server, most of the INEC officials were not able to upload the results live because the system wasn't working. So there are just a lot of these issues.
Let's talk about the young people in this election, because Peter Obi has clearly galvanised a lot of young people to his camp. Has part of that been persuading them to register to vote in the first place?
I think he has, and many people have also. You mentioned NSAS earlier. For the first time in my life, I'm 30 years old. I got to see young people come together and organize themselves over a common issue, and this is young people from across tribal lines, across religious lines, were able to come together and speak to themselves and discuss ways they could work together to advocate for a singular issue that affects them. And I think
the issue was police brutality. There was a particular unit.
Police brutality, yes, the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, which was disbanded, and a few of the demands from that process, were implemented, but there's still a bit more that needs to be done to make sure that the police force is doing better in the country. So people feel like the movement now with the third force, as we call it in Nigeria, is sort of, it grew from the NSAS movement, and I think it's just young people just wanting a better country. I feel like we've been going back and back in cycles across the APC and the PDP. and it does feels like it's a recycling of the same people over and over again. And Peter Obi just seemed like a breath of fresh air, and also because he did seem like he listened to the people. Young people have issues like unemployment, quality education, issues around insecurity, the fact that people leave school and cannot find jobs. And most of these folks were not coming up with ideas on how to solve these particular problems.
Yeah,
But
I
it did
mean,
seem like
it's quite clear that unemployment is a really big problem in Nigeria. At least a third of the population is
it is,
out of
yes,
work, and
it
many
is.
millions of people hold very precarious jobs in the informal sector. Is that the
Yeah.
kind of thing as well that young people are concerned about? That there is no security, job security, which of course originates, I guess, in education, which you've just alluded to.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, this is a really, really big issue. As policy shapers, so last year on International Youth Day, we organized the Niger Policy Hackathon, which brought young people together, up to 200 young people together, to think like policymakers and develop, policy solutions to these issues like unemployment and quality education and those kind of things. And these were the issues that young people kept speaking about. The fact that they leave school, they can't find jobs, and all of this sort of issues. Yeah.
A lot of the campaigning for Peter Obi has taken place in urban areas. It is the political engagement of young people prevalent in outside the big cities as well, in your view?
It is actually. It is. I mean, there have been so many rural markets. I mean, I mean, I'm not campaigning for Peter Obi currently, but he's done a lot to engage rural markets, and that's something that we haven't seen in our political process. Most people focus on the rally and the campaign grounds, but he's taking his rallies into the markets, into the schools to engage young people, have town hall meetings, and even hear from students, which is something we actually haven't seen in our political process.
Just
Yeah.
just to go back to the beginning of you speaking to us, we haven't got a huge amount of time, but you seem to be suggesting and saying, in fact, that a lot of young people have been disenfranchised, or people who've tried to vote today have not been able to. How hopeful are you that there might be some shift in Nigeria?
Well, I mean, I guess hope is the only thing that we can have. It's the only thing we can contribute to hold on to. So the Independent National Electoral Commission has said that in some states there'll be a rerun tomorrow, but it's not in all of the states where we've had this violence. So we're hoping
Okay.
that with the video evidence out there and with the comments that are going around, we hope that some of these people get a chance to eventually vote and exercise their civic rights.
Ebenezar Wikina, the founder of Policy Shapers, thanks so much for joining us here live on NewsHour. You're listening to the BBC.